Beijing is pushing a unique financial campaign urging Chinese citizens and businesses to start using digital currency across the nation. And once that's done, it has plans to promote that digital currency worldwide, eventually looking to achieve international use. But why go through all the trouble? It may be part of Beijing's long game to challenge the US dollar as the most used in the world.
I believe that the adoption of their central bank digital currency is cancerous to the West. I think legislators and/or the Fed should simply outlaw the ownership of the Chinese central bank digital currency in America.
But China's digital yuan boasts a few key differences from other currencies, like being issued by a state-controlled central bank. But what could a widespread transition to financial cyberspace mean for Chinese society? Tune into this week's special report to find out more. Welcome to China in Focus. I'm Tiffany Meyer. More and more transactions are happening digitally, meaning more credit card swipes and online orders with fewer cash payments. And while retailers and other businesses in many nations are adapting, Beijing is taking it a step further. The Chinese Communist Party, or CCP, is pushing a unique initiative, urging its citizens and businesses to switch from physical money to digital money. State-run media Global Times says China's digital yuan transactions have already reached over 60 billion yuan, or nearly $10 billion. At the same time, some 140 million digital wallets have been opened in the country. That's enough for 1 out of every 10 Chinese citizens. In this week's special report, we take a closer look at China's digital currency and some of the points of concern surrounding its growth. The digital yuan that's being rolled out functions exactly like physical banknotes or coins. And the currency differs from other types of digital payments, like PayPal, for example. The digital yuan does not need to be linked to the user's bank account. Instead, it's stored in a virtual wallet app on the user's phone. A transaction between two people is completed just by touching their phones together. Put simply, this currency is physical money, but stored on smartphones. The digital yuan works differently than cryptocurrency too. Using cryptocurrencies can offer a level of privacy as they lean toward decentralization, meaning they function outside the control of a central authority. But China's digital currency is the opposite. It leans towards the centralization of power. The digital yuan will be issued by China's central bank, the People's Bank of China. This means the digital money can be tracked by the Chinese central bank. Media outlet Forbes said the digital yuan would be one of the most aggressive consolidations of economic power the world has seen in the 21st century. But it doesn't stop there. It seems China has even bigger plans for its digital currency. Chinese state-owned outlet CGTN says the digital yuan, also known as the RMB, also promotes the internationalization of Chinese currency. CGTN explains that Beijing may be pushing the digital yuan toward competing against the US dollar as the currency for international trade.
Currently, cross-border RMB settlement is highly dependent on the U.S. SWIFT system, but these cross-border payment and banking systems have been weaponized by the United States to impose financial sanctions on multiple parties. The digital RMB provides an independent alternative for cross-border payments.
To watch today's full special report, click the link in the description down below. We are working with Epoch TV, and all special reports are published there in full length. Now we turn to today's daily news. Disney in Hong Kong. A Simpsons episode depicting Tiananmen Square is missing from Disney Plus's Hong Kong. The episode hints at the communist regime's 1989 massacre, one of Beijing's most tightly censored topics.
The 2005 episode is called Goo Goo Gai Pan. In it, the family travels to China to adopt a baby. They stop in Beijing's Tiananmen Square and find a sign that reads, "On this site in 1989, nothing happened," mocking the regime's cover-up of the massacre at that site on June 4, 1989, when the Chinese military violently cracked down on pro-democracy students. The British Broadcasting Corporation estimates the death toll at around 10,000, And now it's unclear if the Chinese regime is blocking the Simpsons episode or Disney. Communist China's media censorship is growing more stringent, and it's made a priority of censoring information about the '89 massacre. The communist regime considers this information a threat to its legitimacy. Hong Kong used to enjoy more freedom, but it was drastically reduced when the Chinese communist regime took control. And the National Security Law of 2020 brought most remaining freedoms to a halt. Critics call the law the end of Hong Kong. It allows Beijing to step in to deal with actions that may challenge its authority.
Support for Chinese tennis star Peng Shuai is reaching new heights. The Women's Tennis Association said on Wednesday it has decided to suspend tournaments in China due to fears over Peng's safety. In a statement, WTA Chairman and CEO Steve Simon said he doesn't see how he can ask athletes to compete there when Peng Shuai is not allowed to communicate freely and has seemingly been pressured to contradict her allegation of sexual assault. But as the Women's Tennis Association takes action, the International Olympic Committee is pushing back against a new accusation that it's more interested in keeping the Beijing Winter Games on track than it is in the welfare of athletes. The allegation comes from NGO and advocacy group Human Rights Watch. The organization claims the IOC accepted that Chinese tennis star Peng Shuai is safe amid major public concern to keep the peace with Beijing ahead of the event. But senior IOC member Dick Pond strongly pushed back against the suggestion on Tuesday. Peng is the former tennis doubles world champion, but she's been an international concern after she accused China's former vice premier Zhang Gaoli of sexually assaulting her. Not long after she shared the allegation in a social media post, she disappeared from public view for several days. A number of current and former tennis players have joined the calls seeking to confirm her safety, including Naomi Osaka, Serena Williams, and Billie Jean King. While former U.S. Open champion Stan Stosur said she hoped Peng was safe and well. But fellow athletes aren't the only ones pushing for answers. The European Union called on Beijing Tuesday to show proof of Peng's well-being. The bloc also urged Chinese authorities to carry out a full, fair, and transparent investigation into her allegations. But the IOC doesn't appear to share those worries. Last month, Peng joined a video call with International Olympic Committee or IOC President Thomas Bach after her reappearance.
And generally, the consensus of all of those people on the call was that she's fine and she's not under any kind of coercion or confinement. So that's the best evidence we have at the moment, and it's certainly a long way ahead of the people who have not contacted her and who just make statements. So I think I would rely on the combined judgment of colleagues.
Peng's case has sparked calls for a diplomatic boycott of the Beijing 2022 Winter Olympics. U.S. President Biden has said Washington is considering such a boycott. If adopted, U.S. officials would not attend the opening or closing ceremonies. The Beijing Olympics are scheduled to run from February 4th to the 20th. The U.S. Navy's 7th Fleet's commander is calling for the U.S. to increase its presence in the Indo-Pacific region to counter threats from the Chinese Communist regime. The 7th Fleet is a group of U.S. Navy warships that support security and stability in the region. Vice Admiral Carl Thomas said on Tuesday 4 U.S. aircraft carriers deployed in the region is adequate, but he said 6, 7, or 8 would be better. The challenge from China has been growing. In 2019, Beijing commissioned its first domestically built carrier. The second one is expected by 2024, and the third is under construction. U.S. carriers are likely their targets. Recent satellite imagery suggests China has built a mock-up of a U.S. aircraft carrier in the desert, presumably for target practice. On Tuesday, the U.S., Japan, Australia, Canada, and Germany completed a 10-day military drill in Pacific waters. Another high-ranking U.S. military official said the U.S. and China are engaged in an arms race. The head of the U.S. Air Force, Frank Kendall, said on Tuesday that both countries are trying to develop the most lethal hypersonic weapons. Hypersonic weapons are designed to evade conventional missile defense systems, like the one in the U.S., and these weapons can carry nuclear warheads. This summer, Beijing carried out a hypersonic weapons test, and this year, the Pentagon has also held several similar tests. Kendall said the U.S. had focused on Iraq and Afghanistan and taken its eye off the ball when it comes to hypersonic weapons. And on Monday, the Pentagon released a review offering some hints on the future of the U.S. military's global posture. The review called for improving U.S. military infrastructure in Guam and Australia, but it didn't provide any details, as the report is mostly classified. Guam is a small island in the Western Pacific. It's the closest U.S. territory to Asia, and there is a U.S. military base there. U.S. President Biden, much like his predecessor Trump, has sought to diminish focus on the Middle East and increase efforts to counter China. Japan and the United States could not stand by if China attacked Taiwan. Japan's former Prime Minister Shinzo Abe said on Wednesday that Beijing must understand this. And in a rare move for a political figure, he directly mentioned Xi Jinping. At a virtual forum organized by a Taiwanese think tank, Abe said some Japanese islands are only about 60 miles away from Taiwan, and an armed invasion of Taiwan would be a grave danger to Japan. He also talked about the disputed Senkaku Islands, which China calls the Diaoyu Islands. They are administered by Japan, but the CCP claims them as its own territory. Abe named Xi Jinping specifically in remarks cautioning the communist regime to pay extra attention to Japan's stance on Taiwan.
A Taiwan emergency is a Japanese emergency, and therefore an emergency for the Japan-U.S. alliance. People in Beijing, President Xi Jinping in particular, should never have a misunderstanding in recognizing this.
Abe added Taiwan's safety is also in Japan's interests.
A stronger Taiwan, a thriving Taiwan, and a Taiwan that guarantees freedom and human rights are also in Japan's interests. Of course, this is also in the interests of the whole world.
Tensions surrounding Taiwan have increased as Xi Jinping seeks to assert Beijing's sovereignty claims against the democratically ruled island. Taiwan says it wants peace, but will defend itself if needed. A sheriff in Los Angeles declared they will not be working with a COVID-19 testing provider due to connections with China. Here's NTD's Eileen Eng with more details.
Los Angeles County Sheriff Alex Villanueva said their department will not be working with a genetics firm for COVID-19 testing due to its links to China. In a letter to the Los Angeles Board of Supervisors on Monday, Villanueva said the FBI informed him that Fulgent Genetics had strong ties to the Chinese Academy of Medical Sciences, which is controlled by the Chinese Communist Party. He wrote, "I was even more shocked to learn Fulgent made no attempt to disguise the fact they will use the genetic information obtained in future studies." According to Fulgent's website, they may disclose de-identified patient information for general research purposes with third parties like universities, hospitals, other laboratories, and commercial collaborations with private companies. Villanueva said the department will continue using their current system and will not associate themselves to Fulgent. In a statement to Fox LA, the LA County Supervisor said the county's contract with Fulgent prohibits disclosure of info without county's permission, but will take immediate action if there's a credible threat. Eileen Ang, NTD News, California.
The embattled gambling group Suncity closed all its VIP gaming rooms in Macau, the world's largest gambling hub, after authorities arrested the company's CEO. An expert says the arrest hides the Communist Party's leader Xi Jinping's political agenda.
Suncity Group has closed all of its VIP gaming rooms in Macau after the arrest of its CEO. That's according to two sources close to the matter Wednesday. One source said closing the company's VIP rooms would lead to a cut of around a third of its Macau headcount. Suncity did not respond to a request for comment. It comes as its shares were suspended from trade for the second time in 3 days. On Sunday, Suncity CEO Alvin Chow was arrested over alleged links to cross-border gambling and money laundering. Chow is also the founder of Macau's biggest junket operator, which is estimated to make up around a quarter of the region's gaming revenues. Chinese authorities have taken a zero-tolerance approach to the promotion of gambling in mainland China, where it's illegal. The closure of Suncity's gaming rooms has only made the pain worse for Macau-listed casino stocks. Analysts say Wynn Macau is the casino operator most reliant on Suncity's gaming rooms, and its shares have been particularly hard hit. The stock fell 8% on Wednesday. This week alone, it's lost 18%. Suncity stock plunged 48% on Tuesday to a record low, valuing the firm at $113 million.
Cross-border gambling and money laundering. That's what Suncity CEO Alvin Chow is accused of. Experts suggest the charges are part of Beijing's strategy to prevent major private Chinese companies from covertly transferring large sums of money abroad. But it may also be part of the political agenda of the Chinese Communist Party, or CCP's head, Xi Jinping. Chow is dubbed Asia's new gambling king, but this only refers to his business. Some of his epithets in political circles reveal more. Chow was a member of the Chinese People's Political Consultative Conference, one of the most major political entities in the CCP. He also served as an advisor to the Macau branch of the National Association for China's Peaceful Unification. This association is controlled by China's United Front Work Department. The department is deemed by the U.S. government as a CCP propaganda organ dedicated to boosting Beijing's policies, both inside and outside China. Chow is also a supporter of China's Belt and Road Initiative, or BRI. This is another program designed to increase Beijing's influence across the world. But how could Chow contribute this project as a businessman in the gambling industry? The BRI program brings gambling to more countries, especially in Southeast Asia. Chow seems to completely align with the CCP, at least in word and action. So why did he become a target of the regime? Australia-based China Affairs analyst Yuan Hongbing says Chow's arrest relates to the fight for power in the upper echelons of the regime. He says Chow is standing on the wrong side, the side Xi Jinping aims to eradicate. Yuan quoted an inside source in Macau, saying Chow is a so-called white glove for former CCP leader Jiang Zemin and his network of power. In Chinese, the term for white glove refers to a person who helps those in power launder money. Yuan says Chow's arrest is Xi Jinping's attempt to destroy an important financial foundation within Jiang Zemin's base. He explains that Xi Jinping wants to elevate his status to match Mao Zedong, the CCP's founding leader. To do this, he needs to elevate himself above other former leaders of the regime. But there are still some people at the core of the party who openly speak in favor of the previous party leader Jiang Zemin. And so it may be that Xi Jinping is compelled to intensify his political cleansing. And that's all for today's China in Focus. Thanks for watching, and see you tomorrow.